Well, guys, welcome to the $7 to $100 million podcast. I'm your host, Tim Warren. I am joined by Danielle and Paul, we are all on this journey together to scale a $7 million service business to $100 million. Where this podcast and this live stream is all about everything we are facing on a daily basis, the good, the bad, the ugly of doing that scaling journey, and the things we are running into and how we're solving them. So the purpose of this, for those of you who want to listen, want to watch, so if you're listening on podcast, you're watching live, or you watch the recording later, if you have a business, service business or non-service business, and you're trying to scale the company, the whole goal of this podcast is us just documenting the journey of what we're having to go through and what we're learning and what we're unlocking as we grow. And so obviously, if you're starting your business and you're at, $100,000 in sales, you're at $1 million in sales, and you're like, how do I get to 7 million? We can definitely do, we can have conversations and we can do podcasts on that, how we actually scaled up to 7. And now the journey is, how do we get from 7 to 100? So how do we go from a, large, small business or small mid-sized business to an enterprise company? What does that journey look like? Just to recap really quickly for those of you who are watching, what have we learned so far, and what are some of the initial lessons that we've gained? Lessons we've learned, I guess, knowledge we've gained in this year. Number one, we went to Hormozi's headquarters. So this is not a paid sales pitch, although Hormozi, if you're watching, the conference was good, and pay me a kickback on the back end, it'll be great. If you guys get a chance to go to the scaling workshop at Hormozi's headquarters, it's $5,000 to attend per owner. So Paul and I went, it was 10 grand. And I probably got more out of that seminar and Hormozi's books than I have from probably any other business advice I have paid for up until this date. It was phenomenal. And there was 2 things that I learned coming out of that. Number one was they told us this, and I believed them. But going into it, I didn't though, which was they said, look, no one knows who you are. No one knows who your company is. No one knows who you are. Like, no one knows who you are. And unless you're spending tens of millions of dollars a day on advertising, like, no one knows who you guys are. There's so many people out there. And you have 125 clients, like, no one knows who you are. So what they tried to dispel in our mind was like, people know who helium is. Like, people don't know who helium is, right? So they're like, unless you are 24/7, not sleeping and only promoting your company, you're not doing everything you could be doing to get the word out about what you do and who you are, because no one knows who you are. So that changed our perspective on advertising and content and all of that. Up until then, I was like, man, it's a lot of time and energy to create all this content. Like, is it worth it? And then their perspective was, well, can you afford not to? Like, no one knows who you are. So if no one knows who you are, they're not going to buy from you. Fair point. Number 2, I would say that we learned was the sales motion, getting the sales motion to be a very clearly defined, very dialed in thing. The sales motion is not, I think prior to that, I believed, look for people who have pain, have a really good product, pitch them the thing, right, and ask for the sale. But it's not that simple. You actually have to really document your entire sales journey for your sales team, from the second a lead comes in and how to work the lead and how fast to work the lead and what to ask and exactly what to say and how to book the meeting, all the way down to the discovery call, the proposal meeting, what the objections are, exactly what to say to overcome the objections, and then you need to practice it with your team daily. So closing is like free throws in basketball. You'll never have a good free throw percentage unless you shoot hundreds of free throws a day, and you just absolutely build the muscle memory. So when you're under the pressure of a game, you can drain the free throws. It's the same with sales. So that was probably my other really big takeaway. So catching you guys up, this is what we are learning and changing in our business is we got to advertise more, and we really got to dial in sales. Paul, any other takeaways for you that were different than those?
Well, I think my absolute favorite takeaway is the more, better, new concept. And just as we are kind of working on scaling the company, like I think as entrepreneurs, it's like our default is always to like come up with something new,
right?
To like do more of what's currently working or do what's currently working better. I think my favorite analogy was like, you talked about playing a video game and you get to like level 4 and you're like, this final boss is impossible. So maybe instead of try to beat this boss, I'll just start a new game and get to level 4 again. Start a new game. And before long, I'll have like 12 games at level 4 versus just beating that boss is usually the way to much more sustainable long-term in size. So I think that is one of my favorite takeaways that I've just kept using over and over. And then I think the other one is just that people need to be reminded more than they're taught. And I actually heard someone else say this yesterday, which I thought was great. Is like, if you go into the locker room of the Chicago Bulls, like, if you go look on the wall, there's all these motivational like quotes and things about like work ethic and whatnot. He's like, these are the best players in the world, and they have to constantly remind themselves of like these mindset components. And so, like, I think as people, it's like we like a lot of times we know the right things to do, but we just have to be reminded of them too. So I think there's probably like 10 other things that have like stuck in my brain, but those are the 2 that just came to mind right now. So
that's great.
Yeah.
So Paul, I want to share something with you that I learned yesterday that I thought would make both good podcasts, fodder, if you will, but also something that I think is like actually really helpful for us to go through. In some of Hormozi's videos, if you notice, he has like a quick framework where he's like, what are you selling per month? What's your churn? And then he immediately is like, all right, you're going to cap out at this number. Right. Yeah. So I watched the video. I sent it to you this morning. I texted it to you this morning. It's called the pie formula. Right. And basically what he does is he takes the inflow divided by the outflow, and it gives you the maximum size the business will ever get to. But as it approaches that maximum size, it'll start to level off. And he's like, a lot of times because of just unpredictability, unexpected churn, whatever, which we have seen as well too, it never really probably reaches the actual theoretical maximum. It gets to maybe 80-90% of the maximum. So here's what and then I texted you about bigger bets. So I wanted to just like kind of put my ideas out there and just chat through them. Mm-hmm. So number one is I'm starting to realize the framework that we need to have to actually really scale the business. I'm starting to figure out the framework, and I'm going to use a poker analogy because I think poker, like risk taking and poker and business, are actually somewhat synonymous. Like a lot of good entrepreneurs I've met are also good poker players.
Yeah, poker matches reality better than games like chess because they're like closed environments. Like a lot of times you don't know. Like a lot of times you have a hand and you don't know what everyone else has, and you have to go out. You have to like when you have a good hand. That's when you often have to double down, and you have to win when you got a good hand and get out when you have a bad one. Yeah, right.
And then there's like random stuff that can go wrong where you have a straight flush and the other guy's a royal flush, and even though you went all in, it was a great decision. He just had a better hand and it was unlucky. That can happen in business. You're also playing the table, right? You're playing the other people. Like there's bluffing, the fake it till you make it is bluffing, right? Like that's literally a thing. All right. So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about another entrepreneur who's in the SEO space who does work in the legal space only. And his company is like double our size, and his salary cap is half ours, right? And it was like, how can you afford to advertise so much? And he was like, well, I'm really profitable. Like he's generating like 35-40% net profit. So he's so profitable that he can just take bigger bets. Okay. And so here's what I was realizing, right? If you think about it, right? If you've got 10 grand in your pot, right? And you have a flush and you're like, ooh, it's pretty good. You're like, well, I don't want to bet the whole 10 grand because then if I lose, I'm out. Right. So you're like, I'll bet $1,000, right? Because you only have 10 grand. Then you win the pot, but you could have won a huge pot because you had a really good hand, but you only put in $1,000. Then everyone else, folds and you win $5,000, right? You go from 10 to 15. Versus if you are like, I'm going to send it. So let's say you have 100,000 in your hand, right? And you bet 10, right? And everybody else bets 10. And now you win $50,000, right? Because you were able to bet 10. You win 10 times the amount of money because you were able to bet 10 times more because you had a great hand, but you weren't going all in. You just had enough money where a $10,000 bet was only 10% of what you had in your hand. So this is what I'm starting to realize. I think everything ladders down from profitability first, profitability allows you to have enough extra money where you can take bigger bets on advertising, sales, whatever. You can take big swings, because if you take a big swing, you're like, let's double our advertising budget this month. You're not losing money or not able to pay your mortgage to do that. You're like, I'll just make less money, but I still have 100 grand in profit. So then, okay, I might lose half of that, but I still have 50 grand in profit, right?
Yeah.
So if we don't have profit at the very beginning outset, like a lot of profit, we then can't take bigger bets, because you have to be ridiculously okay with risk, right? Like MrBeast, where MrBeast literally takes every video, all the money he makes, and puts it directly into the next video and completely reinvests. But the guy,
I also think, I don't think I think it sounds risky on the outside, but like, I think he's very knowledgeable of the metrics of the videos and the revenue. And so he's really he understands the numbers really well, and then knows that like when he reinvests that it is going to pay off. So I think he knows that, and it's, to an outsider, it looks really crazy because they don't see the metrics that he's looking at. But I think to Hormozi's point though, that a lot of times people who have really good positions don't bet up to the point that they should. Like, they're not betting as much as they should. And so I think the thing that's amazing about MrBeast is like, when he has a good hand, he's always going all in.
Right.
He's not going all in with a crap hand. Like, he knows his hand is good, basically. And then he's
and he said something. So I actually watched him on the Joe Rogan podcast last night, because anytime I get a chance to hear from a guy who's a billionaire, like, you want to listen to him. Mm-hmm. And so he talked about, he said he researches. His answer is read and watch every single thing you can about the thing you're trying to do. He's like, because all the information is free out there online. He's like, so it just comes down to laziness if you don't want to like take in the information. He's like, learn and research everything you can. He's like, and then go do thousands of iterations. And he's like, if you learn all the stuff and you do thousands of iterations, he's like, you will win. You will succeed at the thing. So he's like, all I did was, I studied it and I studied it and I studied it, but then we're making videos. So we're studying and we're iterating. We're doing both at the same time.
Yeah, he's like, what we talked about yesterday. It's like the combination of research and effort, not like one excluding the other. It's like the ratio.
Right, exactly. Because he's like, if you only do 100 mock podcasts, right, and you never research it, you probably won't get that good. If you only ever research Joe Rogan's podcast, but you never make podcasts, you won't actually iterate because you've never actually exercised the muscle, right? Yeah. So it's like, you got to do both together. He said something that was really interesting. So his mom would come to him like crying and saying like, you're taking too much risk, like slow down, don't spend so much on these videos, right? And he would say like, Mom, it's going to be fine, it's going to work out. And she's like, how do you know that? He's like, I just know it'll be fine. And he was like, the way that he did it was, he was a single guy. He split rent. His rent was like $360 a month. He had a $720 apartment that he split with somebody else. And he's like, I had a $2,000 Dodge Durango. That was my living expenses. He's like, so if I lost it all doing YouTube, he's like, yeah, it didn't matter, right? He's like, I had nothing. And so if I lost it all and went back to nothing, he's like, well, I started there, so who cares, right? Mm-hmm. So for him, he wasn't, and he actually said something really interesting. He said he'll notice around 5 million subscribers is when a lot of YouTubers will start to level off and decline, because at 5 million, they start to make pretty good money. And now they have a house, they have a car, and he's like, they get lazy. They get comfortable and they get lazy. They stop uploading as much. They stop working the way they did when they were like hungry and determined to make it. And he's like, they start to decline. And what he did instead was he was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just reinvest every dollar back into the stream, into the videos, and just keep pushing this thing and never get complacent and keep my expenses really low. So his basic thing was, I'm not going to spend any of the money in my hand, and I'm going to literally just keep betting like crazy. And he did that, and now his hand got massive, right? His pot is huge. Yeah. So how do we apply that to our business, right? Because, we're both married, we have kids, we have families, we have, there's employees, the business needs to make money, right? So we have to run the business intelligently. Like we can't just take stupid risk. We can't go all in on a pair of twos, right? But here's how I was applying that, Paul, and just, wanted to chat through. I think there's two things we should do with our business. Number one is we should look at the ROI of every single expenditure and say, does this expenditure get me the ROI of something else in my business that has a higher ROI? And if not, we should cut that spend and put it into something with a higher ROI. And so, meaning, like, think about our pot of profit that we could use on ads, right? Mm-hmm. And then ads that would then drive us new proposals that would then drive $50,000 per month in revenue, right? Like to put it in perspective, I'll run some quick math. If the outflow divided by inflow, so Hormozi's pie chart math or whatever. So if we sell $50,000 per month in monthly recurring revenues, you take the top line, divide it by the churn percentage, and it will give you the maximum amount you can get to, right? So if our monthly churn is 3.5%, which is actually going down, but let's just say that it's an average 3.5%, what historically has been. That gives us a theoretical maximum of $1,428,000 per month that we'll be able to do in revenue, right? If we're doing around $630,000 a month in revenue today per month, then this will more than double the company, like over double the business, if we can sell 50K per month. So how I wanted to think about it is basically we look at our company and we cut every single thing that doesn't drive an ROI higher than that and put that money into that poker hand, right? That's like, hey, I have 4 aces. I'm going to put my Beamer in the pot, right? I'm going to put my HSA in the pot. I'm going to put all the cash I have in my wallet in the pot, and I'm all in because I literally can't lose unless this guy has a royal flush, and he doesn't have a royal flush. So I'm all in, right? He can't have a royal flush. I have all 4 aces, right? Right? He can't. So I know I have a great hand, like all in, right? That's what I'm thinking we should do. I think we should focus maniacally first on as much possible profit as we can have, not just to have a bunch of profit and sitting in the bank, but to be able to then reinvest that into the bet that can get us to the 50K per month consistently every month, which will then more than double the business and help us really grow. That's what I think we need to do.
Yeah, actually, what I hear from that when I'm thinking it through it is actually that we view potentially our constraint right now on our 50K MRR, how much money we can spend on ads, but comfortably. So how much? But the constraint we're dealing with there is how do we become more profitable so we can up our ads dollars? Because if we up our ads dollars, we got the lead flow to consistently sell our 9 deals per month.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
I do because let's just use just logic, right? If you have $1 million sitting in the bank and you're like, I'm going to risk this $1 million. Well, that's money already made. That's just a pool of cash that if you spend doesn't come back in. If the more profitably we run the business today, that's reoccurring revenue that will come back in every month. So even if I risk the whole pot of profit this month, like I'm going to get a whole nother pot of profit next month. To me, that's actually a way smarter way to risk, I guess, than just risking like physical sums of cash. Although I would say what I think we should do is, yes, the constraint on the business is actually profitability, having a high enough profit margin where we can afford to take big swings and we're still not betting the whole pot, right? And then as we drive new clients, we then have more new profits so we can keep reinvesting, which is, I think, how you get to a place where it's like, I tripled my ad budget because I could physically afford to do so.
Yep.
So yeah, I would say the constraint is that. But then I think
if we isolate that as a constraint too, we can come at it from the same kind of like data approach that we have on marketing, like even having a dashboard that gives us like total visibility into what's going on. I like when I think through the profitability thing, my number one thing is that because we're not tracking hours per client, I think that work just so you've got like happy clients and then you've got unhappy clients, and there's no like boundaries. Like let's just say you got a client that's doing really good, but then you got a client that's a squeaky wheel that's getting really upset.
Right.
Like today we don't have any like boundaries on how much time and effort can you put into helping that client. So time, like bandwidth that team members have, is constantly shifting in a way that has nothing to do with it's not tied to any true efficiency or profitability. So like, let's say a $500 a month client is a really squeaky wheel. Like today, we could go drop like $5,000 worth of human hours into that client, and like there actually wouldn't be anything that would stop that. So on a big macro system, that type of decision making is happening left and right. So I actually think one of our very first things we need to do is just actually just do like an hour tracking across all of our clients to understand that. Because if we don't understand that, we don't really know how to improve profitability yet. Now, I think there's cuts we can make out of the gate, so I'm not saying that either. Like cuts to like softwares and stuff, which I think we have cuts for that.
Yeah, so I think, and I think the way we need to look at everything in the business is what's the ROI of this? What's the ROI of this expense?
It is, right? How would you calculate that for something that's like really, many steps away? So like let's just say, for example, that you're a big business and you have a janitor who cleans up the office at the end of the day. So he's not directly contributing to any revenue. He's maybe like, if he stopped coming in for like a month, the business still might operate fine. But like, how would you ever say the janitor's like, his ROI is 1.2?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a great question. And I was actually thinking about this too take our like account managers, right? Like, how do we calculate the true ROI of an account or a project manager, right? We could look at their book of business, right? Mm-hmm. But then what all goes into it and all of that. I think we're going to need to figure out, Paul, I think some of the research we're going to need to do is utilization ratios. And we're going to have to think about, so take the janitor. I think the janitor, the ROI of the janitor would be, well, what if we don't have a janitor? Well, then the office is not clean. People don't want to work here. It's a gross environment. We'll have churn of really good employees. What would happen if we have the churn of the really good employees? Oh, we would lose good clients and we would lose this revenue. Okay. Right. So you could probably then eventually connect that cost center of having a janitor into, we would lose clients, right? We would lose.
It's not more qualitative though than it is quantitative. Like you want to be able to assign a specific number to it. Like it would be super.
You might be able to. But yeah, right. I would say probably the janitor and the office space together would need to be combined into what is the value of having an office space even in general, right? And I think you need to be able to assign a value to that. So here's the question to that. I don't actually have the answer of how we do it, but I know that there are ways to calculate it, because when really large companies are deciding to open offices and open locations and spend dollars, right? Like publicly traded companies, they have a model for deciding what the return on investment is going to be on these expenses. Like they're modeling it out. So I think that's something we need to say, we need to know how to do this, but we don't know today, right? So that's like knowledge we have to go gain. Yeah. So that's I think the first thing. The second thing is, I think what we should do is take our service, the cost of delivering our product. And I think we should do two things. Number one, we should look at, what are the things that clients actually really care about? What are the things clients don't actually really care about? And we should adjust our pricing and our product to be way more focused on the things they actually care about and not the things they don't care about. And then we should charge more for the things they really care about, right? And charge less for things they don't care about, or take it out completely, thereby allowing us to like charge based on desire and constraint, right? Like, for example, one thing that I learned yesterday as we met was that content and links are something in the sales process clients get really focused on, right? But it's only like 25% of the cost of our package. Like the service team is half the cost of the package. Yet in the sales process, clients are like, oh yeah, we get one meeting a month. That's fine. I'm not that worried about it. So then it's like this disparate of, so before we start, the client's like, I care about the work that's going to be done in the package, not the team meetings. Then once they start, they care about meetings all the time and wanting to meet. So that's like, okay. So we actually then need to be smarter about that and say, how do we organize that to be, what should we change on the sale? Because what ends up happening in reality is tons of meetings, which then makes us way less profitable, right? So here's where my head goes. We should up our prices and include way more content and links, which people get really excited about to buy. And we should know that they're going to ask and want double the amount of meetings. We should pre-plan and build that in because that's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I know one thing out of the gate. So I don't know this for sure, but I've kind of heard through like other vendors and stuff that like Chris, for example, spent a way higher percentage of his dollars on backlink building.
Okay.
Legal. So like that's like so maybe backlinks are one of those ones that they're the easiest one because we can.
Oh, they're so easy for us to do because they don't take any client involvement. Yeah.
But and then also from a impact standpoint, for most businesses we work with, they are the largest impact thing, more so than the meetings that we have with them. So that, but I get your bigger picture point, which is like how do we better align our packages with what people want, and simultaneously be more profitable. Like just what we probably are burning right now is like time from meetings. Like meetings is probably where we are losing a lot of our revenue. And I always think about meetings as more than just the time meeting. It's also the time prepping, the time following up.
Yep.
Every meeting you add multiplies. I actually like we kind of talked about this with the sales team, for example, but like anytime that first meeting gets scheduled, it usually results in multiple additional meetings.
Correct.
That one meeting. So the more meetings we put on their calendar, the more first meetings they're on their calendar starts to blow up really fast because all those first meetings often become more meetings and follow-up time and stuff like that. So
it's also mind share as well. Like,
mind share, yeah, sure.
Like I was thinking about this. So like if I had 15 clients, right, that I was trying to sell to, right? And if I had to meet with those 15 accounts, like I'm going to be really busy because I got to meet with them. I got to prep for the meeting. I got to think about the stuff they need. I'm like working on the stuff in the background to get things going. It's just like, right. But imagine if I had 15 accounts that I serviced, but I never had to meet with them, right? I would have way more time because the meetings for accounts and account project and ads people, the meetings are what suck up a ton of the day, right? Yeah. Which then makes them super, super busy. So this is kind of what I wanted to chat.
And we say energy too, because I think actually what we're what produces the feeling of overwhelm and like feeling at capacity has less to do with the quality of time you work and more to do with how things eat up your energy. And so like for me, for example, like I could probably manage like tons of accounts if I didn't have to meet with them because like the meetings suck up the energy. Like you have to be mentally prepared to like meet with somebody, go through stuff. So I know you're gonna keep going, but like I think energy is the other thing that like we should think about in the system because that's all probably what plays a bigger role in someone feeling like busy is how much energy they have.
Right. So I think what the idea that I am starting to like formulate, right, is when people buy the SEO or SEM campaign, what they care about is they care about the price and they care about the deliverables, like in great detail. Like, are you gonna add the content to my pages? How many content pieces are you gonna build? What's in here? Like and then right now the difference between the price, okay, this is what's broken. The difference between our low end price and our higher end price is more content, more links. Right. But Sean told me that today that a $3,000 account and a $7,000 account take the exact same amount of work from a meeting standpoint, which is broken. Right. Yeah. That's broken. Right. And so it's like, oh, snap. So yeah, there's more content, there's more links, but that's easy for us to execute on. Right. That's the easy stuff because the systems are really well ironed out. The meetings are the thing that's hard because meetings can go in 15 different directions. And it's like,
meetings also produce more work. Like
meetings produce more work.
Something I will tell clients, like in the like if I'm in the sales process or like when I'm working with Sean and stuff on this, is that like, it's actually dangerous to meet once a week for everybody. It's like not actually a better thing. Early on, it's fine. Like when you're starting the campaign and there's a lot to like disseminate between teams, that's fine. But like when you start meeting once a week, it's actually the more better new. You get in this phase of new. Just every meeting you feel like you need to do something,
right?
Change something, and so you don't let stuff like run long enough to learn anything. And so I think too that like what happens when we meet frequently or more frequently is it actually creates more work that's not actually scoped out. And then our team is in this like position where like we want to win for them. We don't want them to be upset. And so we agree to it. And then like I guarantee that the amount of work we do for a client is proportional to how many times we meet with them. So, or probably disproportional, like where if we meet with them more frequently, the amount of work that we do for them, like it spans like a balloon. So I know this doesn't get us to like an answer on this, but I think like I agree with the point that meetings are actually the source of a lot of problems also, but they're also important. So it's a balance.
I'm writing a note down because I think as we leadership meeting later today and we start to talk through this stuff, I think I just realized something. When I think about our packages, right? So take the big moving company that we just sold, right? $13,000 per month campaign. Remember how much of the meeting we talked about meeting frequency? Do you remember?
Yeah, like 5 minutes or less.
Yeah, like we met with them for probably 2 hours or 2 or 3 hours total over two meetings. And we talked about content and locations and links and competitors and keywords. And we talked about the deliverables for 2 hours and 50 minutes. We talked about the client meetings for maybe 5 minutes. But then, to your point, what's going to happen is they get kicked off. And then here's what I just realized. Clients are going to value the work that's being done based on how often they meet with us and what they see, right?
Oh,
so like
yeah.
if I have an employee,
what was the last thing I did? Yeah, it's a concept of like, what was the last thing that you did for me?
Right. And how do I measure what you're doing, right? Because
so if I meet with you every week, I actually had this problem on this one big SaaS client that I was on last year,
right?
Where we met every week, and so every week I felt like I had to perform at the same bar as the previous week. Otherwise, they felt underwhelmed, and then like the amount of preparation and work just became like overwhelming.
Totally. Well, so here's what I just realized: if we're a service provider, right? Like an internet service provider, I don't expect Spectrum to ever come to our office, right, to do anything. I just expect the service, right?
Yeah.
So I don't expect any meetings. I think, Paul, what happens is once they get going and start paying their invoice and then we're meeting with them, what happens is like, oh, this is really nice. I can meet with Cole. Cole can answer my questions. We bring up new questions like, oh, what about our analytics? What about this thing? What about this? And then our team, of course, wants to do a good job. So then it's like, yep, let's help you get that solved. And that's why we have such good retention and why our clients working with us, because it's a great experience, right? It's a great experience. We've built that on purpose. The problem I now realize is that clients, before they buy, everything's based on the work in the details of what's in the scope. So they're like, well, I don't want to buy the $8,000 per month scope because I don't need 50 pieces of content, right? Right? And they're like, yeah, we can meet once a month. That's fine. Then what happens is they start meeting once a month. They're like, I don't feel like I'm getting enough connection to what's happening. We should meet weekly. Then we meet weekly, and then it produces 4 times the amount of work, but they don't pay 4 times the amount. They pay the same amount they paid before. But we keep meeting with the client because we want them to be happy because we don't want churn. So here's what I realized. What we should actually do is we should price our packages differently. What if the scale of price was based on access to the team, not the work that got done? So what if it's like, hey, the $4,000, the $5,000, the $8,000, they're all 25 pieces of content and 25 links. Yeah. But this one is you get no meetings. This one is you get a monthly meeting. This one is you get a weekly meeting. You get like we are like an employee at your company.
Yeah, if we design the packages more around the consulting needs that the business has rather than these executionary like levers, because the client might be fixated on those levers because that's all that they perceive the pricing to be different because of. It's like we're saying like, this one you get this number of links, this one you get this much content. It might not be that they have any like preference towards content or backlinks. They might have really no way of judging that, but like we are actually positioning it as like the difference in these packages are those things. But like actually what we want to figure out is what are their consulting needs? What do they need from a team that can be flexible on the account, that can help them with different things? That's the better gauge. And then if we position it like that in the sale, then their expectations are more aligned in the delivery process to that.
And then it allows for upsells because, like, let's say the client, right, because let's say the client is in a $4,000 a month campaign and they're like, I know that I don't get meetings, you just executing the work, and that's how you have to do this to be profitable. But then they get in, they're like, man, I really want to meet more frequently. I don't feel like I understand what's going on. Great. You have to go up to the next program to do that. We'd love to do it. That's the 6K.
Yeah, because one thing I think I've learned just on this point that I think is worth saying, I think Sean has said this too, but like the $450 per meeting concept just doesn't work because it's like you're assigning too much cost to that meeting. But what you're saying is you upgrade your package, you get more of our consulting time. That's a little bit more digestible versus if every time you come into my office, you're like, Paul, to talk to you, it's gonna be $350. Then I'm like,
and it made you pay me in cash. Like you gotta pay me now.
Pay me in cash. I'm gonna like evaluate. Like I'm gonna like lock my door and like duct tape it. Like
you're like, I don't know.
Like, if you're like, hey, if you pay, if you get a slightly higher tier, you can come in. I can come into your office without you paying me $350 every time. So I think there's something about like the positioning there that is more digestible. Where I think that the 450 just feels too brutal because then like you're like, well, did I get $450 out of this meeting? But like the difference, like if it's a package, people just don't evaluate it like that. It's the same concept of like, if you had to pay every single day versus pay once a month, like you're always just evaluating everything a lot more intensely when you have to pay for it ad hoc.
Well, and the other thing that Sean said is the problem too is if you have a client who like let's say we're trying to drive them results, but they don't have tracking. And so we don't know how many leads we're really driving. And we're like, look, we have to fix this tracking issue, which is then an unpredictable amount of time it's going to take. So then we're meeting with them more frequently, trying to get the tracking issue so that we can actually track our profitability. So we can track our performance so we can deliver on the guarantee. And then they get used to that. They're like, well, I don't want to go back to fewer meetings. Like we need this level of service. And then the client gets unhappy. So it's right. Exactly. Like it's like telling your girlfriend, like, look, we only agreed to go out to dinner once every 2 weeks. That's it. She's like, but I want to go out tonight. Like, no, that's the rule. You get it once every 2 weeks. Like that just isn't going to work. Right. It doesn't work well in relationships to like have really strict rules like that, unless that's predetermined in the sale, right? So what I'm realizing is I think what we need to do with our packages, Paul, is I think with the way we've built our packages doesn't align to the reality of what happens once people get through the gate into the amusement park, right? We've priced it incorrectly because what really sucks up our time and our profitability is how many meetings we have to do. Because imagine if you had a DSC and they had 50 accounts that we never met with. They could handle 50 accounts because they would have time to actually manage and make sure things are being done because they don't have any meetings.
Yeah, and then also just like with AI utilization, you can have AI help you write emails. You can have AI help you execute work.
Right.
Like you can't have AI prepare for a meeting, jump on a meeting, talk to a client. So like you're not really able to leverage efficiency gains for the meetings. Like the meetings are the most expensive thing we could possibly do.
Right. And they eat up mind share, which then caps how many accounts an account manager can have.
Yeah,
right?
And I think energy is a big one too. I mean, it's to some extent like a mixture of a consultant and a customer service rep. Like you have to be prepared for people to throw punches, to be upset at you. All of that is far more draining, than. And
I'm even thinking about the company that we have down in Florida, right? Who I meet with I meet with him for like 30 minutes every couple months, or if even that, right? And we just do some he pays us like $900 a month, and we do a little bit of link building, and he pays for Noble, right? And I'm thinking if we think about that account from a gross margin perspective, it's not a high spend, but the gross margin is probably like 80% or whatever, right? Because we don't have any meetings, right? And then
I was just gonna say this. I think this overlaps with the discussion that you were kind of talking to me on Slack about like a smaller package. like a smaller package can totally work as long as you don't have to do meetings. Because as soon as you do a meeting, then all profit is gone.
Gone.
Invest.
Right.
I do have thoughts on that too. I wanted to show you as well. If we have a second.
All right, so I do have another meeting I have to jump to, but I think this is a great way. You know, we're at 45 minutes, so this will be a good time to wrap up this pod. Well, let's save that for tomorrow. But this is my takeaways. I think I'm realizing we need to fix our product pricing and the way we present our product to match what the client really wants. And I think this is this idea of like, if we predict their pain and we predict the future, they trust us to solve the problem better. I think what we could do here, what I'm realizing is actually knowing what we have so many accounts, we've done this long enough. We should sit down and be like, what does it really look like once somebody's been a client for 7, 8, 9 months, 12 months, 24 months, 50 months? What does that relationship end up looking like? What do they care about the most? What do they end up not caring about? And let's reframe our packages to match the stuff they actually really want and don't want. And then those become the levers. And then the levers should be the things that decrease profitability, where it's like, you got to go to this higher package, because if we meet with you now, like if we don't meet with you, $2,000 a month, we're good. Oh, sweet. Wow. Okay, cool. But if we meet with you, it's $5,000 a month. Oh, wow. Why? And then we can explain it. Well, if we meet with you, we're going to have to meet with you way more often. We're going to have to fix analytics issues. We're going to have to get into other technical details. We're going to have to do all these things. Otherwise, we're just building links and content, and we don't have to meet with you to do that. And boom, 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 boom. Right? Because service is either done really well or it's done really poorly. And if it's done well, it's going to cost a lot more money. So I think that, to me, makes sense of how we will need to adjust this.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good insight about the fact that people care about the links and the content and the sales, but then really what determines the profitability is not those, it's the times that we meet with them. And we're not setting expectations about meetings enough in the sales and tying that to price closely enough that people see that as what they're paying for. So then if they pay for a $2,000 package or a $3,000 package, they have the same perspective of the meeting cadence, even though the meetings are what kills us, basically. So I think I do think that's a great thing to tackle. We'll have to look at it from two angles. One is existing clients, because we have to manage 120 clients today, and future clients as well. So.
All right, guys, this has been a great pod. I hope those of you who joined us live, hope you enjoy. Leave some comments and tell us what content you'd like to see more in the future. And we will see you guys on the next one.